All right, hello, Metal Maniacs. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. Absolutely thrilled. Today I am chatting with the one and only Mr. Albert Rybka, of course, of Acracy and the Core Manifold and Katagory V, among many other great bands. How are you doing, sir?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having me, Victor.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good to see you, Al. It's always great talking to you. Yeah, really excited to chat with you. One, you've been incredibly busy this past year, and 2023 and 2024 so far. You have a lot going on, a lot of new material coming out. It seems like a lot of new cool stuff happening. So I know with just to kind of start with, um, well, I don't even know where to start actually, but I guess with the Core Manifold is your newest project, right?
I've got a copy of that little album right here, complete with
Oh,
very like early 90s independent, like it screams of that sort of look, doesn't it?
yeah.
But yeah, it just came out in February. I jokingly refer to it as my dad band. It's basically me and a bunch of dads just
Nice.
making, classic style metal. So
Yeah. Yeah, very cool stuff. And it does not sound like dad, to me. It sounds very fresh. It's very powerful. Just we were chatting before the interview and I was listening to it today and yeah, I one of those albums I just got sucked right in. I was so involved and hopefully hopefully my boss isn't watching this because I was working while I was listening to it and I kind of stopped working and just turned and listened because I'm like, this is, because it's not background music. It's an album you put on and you sit down and you listen to it. That's the thing. It's not something that you have playing in the background. At least for me, it's no, I've got to sit down and listen to this because it strips the paint off the wall. It takes you and throws you up against the wall, and you have to listen to it. Yeah, it's killer stuff. It's really, really, and so, yeah, you said it came out in February, right?
we released it right around like end of January, beginning of February. We
Nice.
didn't really have an official release date. We just kind of pressed copies and are
Okay.
sitting on them. I know we've got a website up. And if I was better prepared, I could give you the address. I could probably search for it real quick and pull it up. But it's pretty easy to find us.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
search the Core Manifold band and you can find it. But it's available on all the streaming platforms too. And so yeah, I hope people dig it. And I'm glad that you do.
Oh, it's great.
That's some really high praise. So I
No,
appreciate it.
it's really good. I mean, and with all anything you do, it's one of the things I've always loved about the bands you're involved with is it's always melodic, it's always interesting, it's always complex, but at the same time it rocks. I mean, it's metal, but there's all sorts of cool complexities to the music, and especially with your vocals too. I mean, I mean, for me, high praise always. Yeah, you're one of those singers that it just kind of grabs me right away. I just gravitate towards that vocal range anyway. But I mean, I really love that you have a very unique voice. There's elements. I know you've been influenced. We've chatted before, and I know you've been influenced by certain singers, but and you'll hear a little bit of that, but you have a very distinct voice, which is what that anytime, in fact, if I didn't know it was you on an album, if somebody put it on me, like, that's Al. Um, you know,
That's awesome. I appreciate it.
yeah. And I
You
think
know,
that's, I mean, and that's, I mean, that's testament to your talent. I think, when you can hear somebody sing and you know exactly who it is, like from like the first couple notes, like, oh, that's Al, or, that's Bruce Dickinson, or that's, Jeff Tate
it's
or whatever. I mean, you're that kind of caliber, in my hearing.
Oh, well, that's huge. Thank you. I mean, all the singers that I truly look up to are very unique themselves. I mean, guys like you mentioned, Dickinson, or Jeff Tate back in the day, Dio, of course.
Yeah.
And I was always a big James LaBrie fan. That's a guy who made me want to sing. So I think he's super distinctive. Ray
Yeah.
Alder, Ray Alder is to this day my absolute favorite singer. So, I just love guys who, like you said, as soon as you hear them, it takes like a few words and you know exactly who it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ray Alder, I think, is a very underrated vocalist. I wish more people were aware of, and I think in the metal world, but I always felt like Fate's Warning kind of got robbed of the fame they deserved, comparatively. But
Yeah,
that's neither,
criminally so.
yeah, yeah. But that's neither here nor there. Like, what do you do? But for those of you watching, you need to pick up the new Core Manifold album, because yeah, it's excellent. It just rocks. One thing I found really fascinating too, especially because it's still in the vein of what's on the album, but it's a little twist, and it kind of the first time it threw me, the Billy Joel cover of Pressure.
Yeah.
Like, I was
Yeah.
like, I was not expecting it, because you see the title, and I hadn't read the liner notes yet, so I didn't expect that. It just came on. I'm like, wait, I know this song. What is this? And then you start to sing. I'm like, oh my God, it's Pressure. This is cool. Yeah. And the weird thing was, and you might find this really bizarre. For some reason, your vocals on that song remind me a little bit of, not a lot, but a little bit. There's a touch of Danny Elfman.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, but like in the darker era of Oingo Boingo, like when they came back, like
Uh-huh.
Boingo, the album Boingo. I don't know if you ever heard that album. Um,
No, I've heard a little bit of the early stuff, but I couldn't tell you much about them.
yeah, I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's very dark. It's a very dark album for them, because they were always kind of happy, fun, and it's very lyrically very dark, and musically
Hmm.
it's darker. And yeah, his vocals there's almost this kind of metal element to the way he sings on that album. And for some
Mhm.
reason, when I heard your cover of Billy Joel doing Pressure, I thought of Danny Elfman. I know that's a weird, like, and somebody else will listen to this and go like, "What the hell are you talking about? You're out of your mind."
What's he thinking?
Yeah, put your beer down. You're done. uh,
Well, that's cool. Now you've prompted me to want to listen to it and see if I can hear what you hear. So that's cool.
yeah, yeah. I would be curious if you hear that. Was it so? Yeah, tell me a little bit about the decision to put a Billy Joel song on the album.
So we knew that we wanted to do some sort of cover, and we didn't want to do the standard like metal classic. It's been done to death. Everyone's covered War Pigs and Run to the Hills and Breaking the Law. Like we figured, well, why don't we do something that isn't metal and do our take on it, which plenty of other bands have done as well. But I had some suggestions for tunes, and I thought they would be really cool. And I thought that seeing as how all these guys in the band are older than me, that they would have known the songs that I was talking about because they were like 80s pop hits,
Hmm.
but they didn't know any of them. I
Oh,
was like, how
really?
do you not know Level 42 or Taylor Dane? Like,
Yeah.
I was in single digits when these songs were out. You guys were like getting into high school. What, but anywho, um, our main songwriter, Mike Hickman, otherwise known as Hickey, he had always wanted to do Pressure.
Hmm.
And as soon as he brought it up, I thought, I know exactly what I want to hear on this. And he wasn't 100% sure how he was going to do it. He just knew he wanted to do it. And so I kind of put the idea in his head, like, okay, so you know that cool iconic keyboard part in there, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, I think you and our other guitarist, Matt, need to harmonize that and do sort of like a staccato lead on it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said it, he was like, yeah. And
Yeah.
and it just kind of took off from there. So it,
Yeah.
it
That's
became a
brilliant.
really fun tune to do. And I'm just like, I'm so stoked for people to hear it. And I hope it kind of gets out there and maybe that's the catalyst for people to check out the band and see what the original stuff is like.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was, and yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned that, because that was before I realized what I was listening to. It was, yeah, that harmonized guitar opening, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, I know this. Do I know this? And it didn't click right away until you, like I said, until you started singing. But yeah, that opening, because it has, yeah, it's that Iron Maiden type of, Judas Priest, that harmonize, Thin Lizzy harmonized guitar. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, that instead of the synthesizer, it's, yeah, these wonderful, and those guys, I mean, wow, just soaring guitars on the, not just that song, the whole album, just soaring guitars. Yeah, incredible band. How did you connect? How did you meet these guys?
So it's an interesting story. All of the other guys that are in the band are old college friends.
Oh, okay.
So they all went to school together, and they had a very short-lived band back in the 90s called Midian. And they jammed for a couple of years, recorded a few demos, nothing really happened. And the guys kind of stayed in touch throughout the years and all got involved with each other in various other short-lived projects.
Hmm.
And then eventually, they all got married, had kids, and kind of got out of playing for the most part. But one of the guitarists, Matt Verdon, to be exact, he has been playing in a Judas Priest tribute band in my hometown area for years now.
Oh, nice.
And so I got to know him through the members of that band. And he had seen me perform before, and he kept me in mind for when he eventually reunited with these college buddies. And so he suggested me to the guys, and they said, okay, well, let's reach out to him. Because they were like, we want to take these songs that we wrote back in the 90s and then write some new material to go along with it and make an album. So Matt contacted me and asked if I was interested. And I said, well, send me a few songs. Let me hear what you got. And he did, and I was like, I'm sold. Let's do it. All the old demos had our bassist, Dave Heeman, singing on them.
Okay.
And, I understood what he was trying to do, but he never claims to be a singer. He just sang because they couldn't find a singer. And so when they had me try the tunes and they heard me do it, they were like, this is the guy we've been looking for. So,
Nice.
so yeah, we just spent the next 4 years basically slowly writing and recording new material to go along with, I want to say about 5 of those songs are from back in the 90s, and then the rest of it's newer material. And so, because we're all involved with, well, they're all involved with families, and we all have full-time jobs and everything, and I'm in like 900 bands.
Yeah.
Trying to schedule everything is a little tough, but slowly but surely we put it all together and got it mixed and mastered and ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, and created a phenomenal album. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's really interesting. I had no idea that, yes, half of the songs on the album were old songs written in the 90s. That's because it is a very timeless album.
Thanks.
I mean, you could see that it could fit in, in different eras, over the last, 40 years of metal. It has this timelessness to it. But it also sounds very fresh and new too, to my ear. Yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting. Do you guys have any shows lined up? I mean, I know you're all busy, and especially they're they got families. Do you have any intention of playing live?
So we do. It's a little complicated at the moment. So we only jammed together as a full band when I first tried out with them, and that was maybe 2 times total. And then from that point on, everything just was piecemeal. Just,
Really?
everybody recording their separate parts. And so we've never rehearsed as a full band for the purpose of performing live. We're actually having our very first rehearsal 2 weeks from tomorrow. And sadly, our drummer and our bassist, so John Ray, the drummer, and then Dave Heeman, the bassist, will not be participating in the live lineup. Dave actually moved to Florida while we were in the middle of making this album. He still flies into the Chicago area from time to time for work, So he was able to record his parts every time he came into town. But he's just really tied down with work and family responsibilities, and living across the country doesn't
Yeah.
help either.
Yeah.
And then our drummer, we kind of anticipated that he wasn't going to be down for live performances. He's I don't know how much he wants me to reveal, but his job keeps him pretty busy too, and he's got family and whatnot. So he's stepping down as well, and I've actually recruited two former bandmates from the very first serious original band I was ever in to fill in on the rhythm section. So we're going to be getting together in a couple weeks and seeing how well everybody gels.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's cool. That'll be
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be curious to know how that goes. So
Yeah.
that Ancient Dreams drummer possibly? Or
No, actually, this would be from a band called Bavmorda.
oh,
I was
okay.
in this band between 2005 and 2009.
Okay.
And so the drummer's name is Phil DeChico. This guy is a machine, an absolute machine.
Nice.
I've known him for ages now. He's a killer drummer, great friend, and just a fun guy. I haven't played on stage with him since 2008. And so I'm super excited to get out there and do a couple shows with him again.
Nice.
Um, and then our bassist is a friend of mine named Jose Salazar. And so he was in Bavmorda as well. He currently plays in a band called Professor Emeritus, which is a super cool, like traditional / doom metal band out of Chicago.
Cool.
Yeah, they got an album out called oh geez, I think it's Take Me to the Gallows. It came out in 2017, and they're working on a follow-up. It's been taking them some time because they replaced their singer, but I've heard some of the new stuff and it sounds killer. So keep an eye out for that.
All right, cool.
It's gonna be awesome.
It seems like there's like just a thriving metal scene in Chicago right now. There's like a lot coming out of Chicago, which is great. Everything I've heard is fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool bands from the area. Admittedly, I don't feel like the scene is what it used to be. I think that bands used to be a little more supportive of each other, and I feel like they're a little more cliquish these days, which I'm not too happy about. I still try to go out and support bands as much as I can, but yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of guys are getting pretty bitter and old, and now, and there's like, oh, they didn't come out to see my band, I'm not going to see theirs. Screw that. Just
Yeah.
go and support each other. Just do what you can to help spread the word. That's how I feel.
Yeah. The only bitterness I have is Live Nation and big band
Oh,
Live Nation. I hate them.
you're not alone.
I hope the Justice Department takes them down because I'm so sick of it. So I think it's really important there's so much talent in local bands, and I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I got to go see this whatever, and it's like, all right, and I won't name any bands, but I'm like, you want to go see this giant old band lip sync, or with all these backing tracks? Like, go to a bar and watch some younger guys just kill it. Like, you'll see, like you'll it'll be like going back to high school. Like, it's going to be like your youth again. Go to a bar and watch a metal band and it'll blow you away. There's so many great bands out there. It's amazing. I've seen so many cool bands recently, like bands I've never even heard of. And, some of these guys are younger than my children and they just kill. I mean, they're just destroying the place. I think, local music. I think, supporting local music is always a plus. I think it's super important, especially now in this day and age. Because it's tough for bands. You know this. I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I've been around the block a bit.
Yeah, you know it. It's But that's cool. Yeah, I think yeah, the core manifold, and you mentioned I'll circle back real quick. You mentioned the web page. I will have
Yeah.
links in the description so people can like go right to your page and check that
Oh,
out.
perfect.
So I'll have both the Facebook page and the website as well, so people can check you out and yeah, as you mentioned before, yeah, core manifold, all over streaming services. So definitely those of you watching, check them out. What a great band. Yeah, I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'm in. Yeah, yeah, very cool stuff. And I was curious. So you had said that, like 5 of the songs were already, established from the early 90s or from the 90s. So the other stuff, did you contribute lyrics, or was it already put together at that point?
Yeah, so I did not contribute to any of the songwriting on the album. Mike Hickman was the primary songwriter. He's kind of got a vision for how he wants the songs to go, not just musically, but lyrically, melody wise. He kind of mapped everything out for me, which was kind of nice because I'm already involved in so many other projects, and as I've taken on more stuff, it's become more expected of me to be the primary lyricist and coming up with vocal melodies. So it was nice to have a band where I didn't have to think about that.
Yeah.
I could just go in, do the parts that I was asked to do. I offered a little bit of feedback here and there, like, hey, can I sing this line here? What do you think? And he had a 50-50 chance of success with it, like, oh yeah, let's use Al's idea. Or let's stick with what we've got. So yeah, I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to that. But yeah, it was really nice not having to worry about the songwriting here. And I think Hickey is such a great writer.
Yeah.
He's got so many killer tunes on here. The last tune on the album in particular, Silver. I told him after we recorded it, I said, if I want any one song played at my funeral, that's the one.
Yeah, it's so emotive. Yeah, it's just, and that's the thing that this surprises me, like that you didn't contribute to the lyrics. And I think the same thing with the last Category 5, only because you're such an emotional singer that you just own those lyrics. So I would assume this is Al's life story that I'm listening to. I mean, I'm not trying to gush here. I'm like,
Oh,
you
thanks.
really have this very emotive. I think that's why I like your vocals so much. It's very emotive. It's very powerful. It draws emotion from the listener. So that's why I'm always like, oh yeah, this is Al's life. You know? Like,
Well, I'm
no,
glad to hear that.
yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it's always you're like an actor. You're like, well, yeah, you're a character actor. I've got this. Yeah, I'm gonna be this character in this song.
Well,
So,
oddly enough, I did study acting for a
oh,
for a
really?
little while. For the brief time that I went to college, I thought I was going to be an actor, so maybe that plays into it. But also I think I mentioned how Ray Alder is a huge influence,
Hmm.
and if you look at his early career with Fates Warning, he barely wrote any lyrics. I mean, he didn't even write his first lyric with Fates until 4 albums in.
Yeah, that's
On
right.
Inside Out, I think it was Down to the Wire was his first uh, contribution lyrically, because Jim Matheos was writing everything.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
Ray just knows how to tap into that emotion, and I've always been inspired by that. So I'm sure that kind of trickled over as well.
Yeah.
I did write probably 40% of the lyrics on that Category 5 album that's out
Oh.
now.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, I
so
didn't
there,
realize.
there are songs, and if you ask me, the songs with the cheesiest lyrics are mine. I was I was 29 at the time. I wrote most of those lyrics in my late 20s, and I think I was still trying to get the hang of it. I
Hmm.
think, and I was trying to write more personal stuff at the time, and I feel like it's a little too on the nose. Whereas now I feel like I'm writing more about stories now, and I feel like I'm getting better at it. You know, if you ask my guitarist in Acracy, he'll tell you otherwise, but you know, that's a whole other story.
Well, that's a good dovetail into Accuracy, which also, so I know, um so they were already an established band, correct? And you joined them in 2019, I think, right?
Well, the album that we did came out in 2019, but actually I formed the band
Oh,
with,
okay.
yeah, I formed the band with our guitarist Clint Davis and our drummer Juan Cardenas back in
Okay.
2013,
Oh,
actually.
cool. Okay, my apologies. I think I
Oh,
must have misread something somewhere.
oh, no worries. There's not a whole lot of information out there on it, so you know, it's understandable. Yeah, Clint has been a friend of mine for ages. We have a sort of an odd coincidental history together. Uh, Technically, we met, and I remember the exact date. OCD kicking in again. November 1st, 1997.
That is a very
It was my
specific
first
date.
time seeing Dream Theater, House of Blues, Chicago.
Oh, nice.
And I just remember this dude standing next to me. And, you know, he's just wearing like these army fatigue khakis, and he's just playing air guitar and has the biggest grin on his face the entire time. And I'm rocking out because it's my first time seeing who at the time was my absolute favorite band. And we're just singing along and just rocking out the whole time. Shook hands afterwards. We're like, that was such a great show. And then we parted ways and, you know, seemingly never talked again. And then years later, I ran into him because he was playing with a band called Abolisher, which featured, well, Juan wasn't in the band at the time, but he did play in the band for a number of years. And so I would keep running into this guy at shows because he kept playing in the area with Abolisher. And then eventually he and I just started getting to know each other from hanging out at shows. And I started going over to his place and just writing music with him for fun.
Cool.
And we said, you know, we should do something with this stuff. Because we were writing anywhere from, let's see, 2006 to 2013. And so eventually we had a handful of songs that we had worked on together, and I was so busy with other bands at the time. You know, he had his own stuff too, but eventually we got to a point where our schedules worked out and we were like, all right, now's the time. Let's seriously get this band going. And so we just rehearsed the tunes that we had, you know, songs like A Love Least Expected, Come With Me.
Hmm.
Those were the two main ones that we had at the time that ended up on the album. And the rest of them kind of came together once we got Juan involved in 2013 and then started getting a full lineup going. It took us forever to get the album done, but I feel like it was worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're taking forever to get album number 2 done, but
Yeah.
I I assure you that when it does come out, I have every intention of this album being as good, if not better, than the first. We're just about done with all the songwriting. If we can finish this one last tune that we're working on that I'm in love with right now, hopefully we can get everybody rehearsed on it. And actually, um, we have a different lineup from the first album in
Oh,
that our bassist that was on the album, Isaac Trailer, he left the band some years back, and we've replaced him with another Clint. Actually, we have 2 Clints in the band. Clint Pagel is our current bassist.
wow.
Uh, he's like the Indiana version of Billy Sheehan. It's
Oh, cool.
mind-boggling.
Nice.
And then we've since added a keyboardist. His name's Bojan Kolevsky. He's originally from Macedonia, but he lives
Oh,
in the
wow.
Chicago area now.
Nice.
And killer player. We actually we released a single just earlier this year, and
Yeah.
so that's going to be the first taste of what you'll eventually hear when we put out an album in, I don't know, 2029 or something. So
Yeah, gift sublime. And I have to
yes,
say, it is sublime. What a
Oh, thanks.
fantastic song and cool video too. That's a great video. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, everybody can check that out on YouTube right now. It's yeah, killer. It's killer. It's good. I have to, and I hope you won't take offense to this. There's one tiny little there's a there's a scene or a like a little scene in the video that always kind of cracks me up because I've watched it a few times now. But it's
Uh-huh.
I think you're like at the end of a hallway and it
Okay.
looks like you're trying not to laugh.
Oh.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but it always it just puts a smile on my face because
Oh, nice.
it's a pretty serious, powerful song, but then there's this little tiny just where it looks like you have a grin on your face and you're trying not and maybe I'm totally off base and I apologize if I am, but it just puts a smile on my face like because you're such an easygoing guy. So that's what it's like this heavy, serious song, and then there's like, Al with a little grin on his face, like perfect.
It's fitting, I'm sure. I'll have to see where that is because like I feel like I'm about to have an epileptic seizure whenever I watch that video because of just all the constant
It's very
flashes.
fast. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fast, yeah. But it's incredible. The guitar work on that song is amazing. Yeah, really. I mean that is a killer. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the album in, 10 years from now or whenever you
Yeah, well, hopefully it won't be that long, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do assure people when they do hear it, it's going to be worth it. We've got some really cool songs coming. I mean, that one will be on there, of course, but we've got a handful of other ones that we're working on that I think are going to be cool. And we actually have, if you thought our songs were epic on this first album, we've got one coming on this one it's pretty wild.
Nice.
I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, very cool. Oh, I can't wait to hear. Yeah, I would say like if I mean it doesn't sound like Dream Theater, but I think the band has the most Dream Theater-esque kind of vibe to it. Maybe it's very progressive,
Mhm.
but also heavy hitting. I mean, it's very heavy hitting. But yeah, there's this really cool, those like I said in that Give Sublime the guitar work, the cool transitions. Like it's that is a great song. That is an amazing song.
Well,
Um,
thanks. Clint will be happy to hear that. Clint, I've been my nickname for Clint is Riff. I've been
mm,
calling him that for years now. He is easily my favorite riff writer ever. The guy just like it just like flows out of him. I don't know how he does it, but he'll just start playing a riff, and I'm just like, where did this come from? How do you do this every time? And he does it in multiple bands because he's got another band called Legacy Black, who I gotta hook you up with those guys.
yeah.
Uh, I'm sure Clint would be happy to do an interview with you, and I think you'll really dig Legacy Black.
Cool.
Clint actually sings in that band
Oh,
too,
interesting.
by the way. Yeah, he sings and plays guitar. He's got a killer voice. I've been trying to get him to do like duets with me in Acracy, and he's like, no, I just want to play guitar. I'm like, okay, fine. But that's neither here nor there.
That would be interesting though. That would be
Yeah, he's a great player. I love him.
yeah, great. I think Riff is a very that nickname is very apropos. I think that guy does have killer riffs. Yeah, and yeah, and that's available on Bandcamp. I know your first album is, and I think the single is
Yeah,
as well, right? Um,
yeah, those are both available on Bandcamp. You can stream them everywhere too.
cool.
We still have some CDs too. We
Nice.
we we did a small pressing of them, but we still have some available. So
Cool.
if anyone still uses coasters for music, just hit us up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I need to get a physical copy because that's that album that what is it? It's the sorry, I gotta look at my notes.
Yeah, the album's
No
called
Matter.
Doorways to Destiny.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great album. Man, that's a great album. And that came out in 29. That's what came out in 2019, right? That's the
Right.
yeah, killer album. Oh, that's such a good album. Um
Thanks.
yeah, very cool stuff. Um Switch gears a little bit. So you did some guest vocals recently for is it Zych? Is that what he goes by?
So it's pronounced Zych.
Zych. Okay.
Yes, Zych. For anyone interested, Getting a CD of it is a little tough from what I understand, but the album is this one here,
Oh,
Dante's Inferno Part 1.
very cool.
Yeah, super cool album.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted anything.
No, 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 no. That's great. I'm glad you showed it. Yeah, that's it's fantastic. Yeah. So I mean, he basically has done. He's written music and with the vocals of Dante's Inferno, and it's
Mhm.
every each track is each canto, and well, this is part one, so I'm assuming that
Right.
there will be a part two. So you do vocals on the first track and the eighth track, the last track, the canto eight, which is the depths of hell, of course. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and oh, it's so cool, it's so engrossing and interesting, and he's got a lot of really interesting and very cool guest musicians that play on this album, and vocalists as well. A lot of cool people on this album. How did you get involved with Zych?
So Justin Zych is another longtime friend of mine. I met him when he was still in his teens, actually. I was playing in Bavmorda at the time, and I went out to a show in Indiana. He was playing with a band called Zephaniah. And I was actually going for the other band that was on the bill that night, but I decided to check out Zephaniah online prior to the show because, why not check
Yeah.
out the band that you're going to go see before you go see them? And I listened to it and I was like, I didn't know there was a band like this out of Indiana. This is pretty crazy, like speedy power metal stuff. And so so I went for the other band, but I ended up being blown away by Zephaniah. So I went and talked to Justin later after the show, and I was like, I'm bringing you to Chicago. You need to come and do a show with Bad Morta. You guys are killer. And oddly enough, it ended up being the last show that Bad Morta ever did. We got to
Oh,
play with them, and we had to go on after them, which I wish we would have gone in reverse because they just mopped the floor with us.
oh,
But yeah, super talented guitarist. The guy is just he's got such a musical mind too. And
yeah.
um he during the pandemic he moved from Indiana to Texas. He lives in the San Antonio area now.
Oh, well.
And he had been working on this solo album while he was still living in Indiana. And he had told me about it and was like, "Hey, I'm going to drag you in to do something on this, right?" And I said, "Well, I would expect no less because I would be offended if you didn't." And and so originally I only recorded the closing song from The Depths of Hell.
Oh, okay.
And so his goal was to basically make well, as I put it, it sounds like uh, if Sabotage made Bohemian Rhapsody, like that's kind of how I view that song.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good analogy. I like that.
yeah, it's such a crazy song, and I recorded. I have never done a song with that many vocal tracks on it before, and still haven't since then. He put me through the ringer. I was doing harmonies I didn't know existed, and yeah, it turned out super cool, and it was really fun to do. And then probably about 3 or 4 months later, he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to do another one?" The singer I was supposed to have on the opening track bailed on me. It's like, do you even have to ask? Just tell me to come down, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm so glad that I did because that ended up being the song that got a video. So
Yeah.
I got to do my very first music video for, with that song. And that turned out to be really cool too. That was super fun.
Yeah, that's a cool video. Yeah, you've got your red cloak on, and that's very cool. But yeah, I think that the depths of hell, the Canto 8, yeah, that's a great, yeah, your harmonies. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think about that until you said that. Like, yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody. But like, yeah, this very Sabotage metal. Yeah, because you do some, crazy vocal acrobat stuff on that song. You do a lot of cool stuff on that. Yeah, and singing over yourself, and yeah, there's some really cool stuff. Yeah, that's cool. So it's part one. So I'm assuming he'll do a part two. Are you already signed up for part two?
Long as he wants me, I'm ready for it. In fact, he's going to make it a trilogy. I do know
Oh,
that
nice.
much. Yeah, because there are a total of how many cantos? I can't remember. It's something like 24
Yeah,
cantos
I think so.
in the Inferno. So yeah, he's got this whole idea to split it out into three albums, and and so yeah, he knows that if he wants me on a song for the next one, I'll do it. In fact, um, I I don't think I mentioned this prior to our interview, but he and I are working on a brand new project separate from Zych.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, because I'm not in enough bands. Um,
Yeah.
so uh,
You don't need to sleep anymore. It's like yeah.
nope. Who has time for that?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he and I are working on a brand new project. It's very new. We literally just demoed our first song, and he's already got me trying to figure out more harmonies that he wants me to throw on it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's it's an interesting little thing because basically it involves him as well as another good friend of mine who's from my area named Justin Kellerman, another absolutely wicked guitarist.
Yeah, I know
He
who
and I
that
did an
is.
album
Yeah.
together back in 2013 called Empyrean Sanctum,
Okay.
and we actually have a second Empyrean Sanctum on the way too. That's going to be mixed and mastered over the summer, and it features a couple of kind of high profile technical death metal musicians in the rhythm section.
Oh, really?
I'm not at liberty to say who they are just yet. I'm
Yeah.
leaving that up to Justin to Kellerman to release that information.
Okay.
But when people see the names, they're gonna freak.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, that album's gonna be awesome. But basically, so the two Justins, Kellerman and Zych, are playing guitar. We have a bassist who Death fans may know, Kelly Conlon,
Oh,
who
yeah.
played on the Symbolic album.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then our drummer is a guy named Lamar Little, who has been the touring drummer for OTEP for a number of years.
I know
And
who.
he's a
Yeah.
killer player
Yeah,
too.
he's an amazing. I saw him with Sunlord.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because they're from Utah, aren't they? Or or
Chicago, I
was it
think.
or I'm thinking of a different band.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because he is originally from Chicago, but I know he was involved in a Utah band at
Oh,
some
really?
point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
can't
I
remember
saw
what
him
they're
with.
called.
Yeah,
And
I saw him
and I
with
don't want to screw it
Sunlord.
up.
Or actually, I guess
So-
Sunlord. I think Sunlord is actually from Brooklyn, New York. But yeah, he was the drummer. Yeah, I know.
okay.
Yeah, great.
He's
He's a
gotten around.
powerhouse. He's a powerhouse. He's a great drummer.
Yeah, he's super good. So it's going to be the five of us
Nice.
working together, and it's going to be interesting. We've got some pretty technical, slightly thrashy, some power stuff going on. It's going to
Oh,
be nuts.
I can't wait to hear this. This sounds fascinating. Oh, this is
Yeah.
cool. Oh, that sounds great. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'll keep you posted as we get some more songs ready.
Very cool. I don't know how you keep any of this straight. You have so much going on. I have no idea how you function.
Basically, lots of caffeine.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That's the secret. Caffeine and nervous energy.
Yeah, that works. That works. And an amazing amazing vocal range too. So
Thank you.
that's key, I think, too. Like you can have all the passion you want, but if you can't, like, you can actually pull it off. So that's the important thing for sure.
Thanks, man.
And I know we and I'll have a link for listen, viewers. They can I interviewed you with Category 5, your other band.
Mhm.
We won't get into too much of that because that was a pretty fresh interview. But I know you
Yeah.
guys are working on a new album that's coming out in the next year, fairly soon, hopefully. So we
Yes.
won't go too much into that, but I know that's in the works and coming out soon. So that's something for everybody to look for too. And I know in that interview we talked a little bit about your influences and kind of your upbringing and getting into music. But if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of touch on that a little bit again, just because I think it's cool and it's interesting. Because I know it was your father really that got you into metal, right? Originally.
Yeah. So I mentioned in the last interview, my parents are pretty young for having a kid my age. And so my dad grew up, you know, listening to all the classic metal stuff. He loved Dio. Dokken was one of his all-time favorites. And that became one of my all-time favorites too. Dokken was probably like the first band I really latched onto as a kid.
Cool.
So you don't really hear too many stories of a 3-year-old, traipsing around an apartment while Tooth and Nail is blasting, but clearly it had an impact on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I just really fell in love with heavy but melodic stuff. To this day, I can't, more power to like death and black metal guys. I don't know how they pull off those kind of vocals, but it's never been my thing.
Mm.
I really like to hear just like a really clear melodic voice. I like guys with grit too, though. I mean, you take a guy like Jorn Lande or Russell Allen, and
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I could listen to that all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a strong influence for my dad in that regard. And actually, another big influence on me, and I got to give a shout out to this person because I'm sure she'll be watching this at some point. There's a friend who I've had for years who I met in my teenage years. She's originally from Japan, and she has been living in New York now for years, but she did live in Chicago for a long time. And I met her right when she was on the tail end of living here. And her name at the time was Tomoko Miyazaki. She's now Tomoko Brown. And awesome, awesome person. She saw me at this lynch mob show at the House of Blues in Chicago. I wasn't even old enough to get in. I just wanted to see the band. My dad got me in because he schmoozed the security guys, and so here I am. I was like weeks away from turning 17 at the time, and it was a
Oh
21 and
wow.
over show, and so this little Japanese woman sees me, and she's like, "Hey, how old are you?" I was like 16. And she's like, "And you like Lynch Mob?" I was like, "Yeah, I love George Lynch." And so we just got to talking, and it turned out that we had a lot of common interest in bands. And so when I told her that, like my two favorite bands were Dream Theater and Fate's Warning, she said, "Oh, have I got some stuff for you?" And so this was still a time when cassettes were kind of still a thing. So
Right.
she was sending me all these recorded cassettes that she put together with all these just selected tracks from all these like European power metal and progressive metal bands. And
Nice.
that's how I got turned on to all this stuff like Stradivarius and Conception and Angra and
Nice.
um, Poverty's No Crime uh, and Elegy. Elegy, a band who I'm actually sponsoring at this year's Prague Power.
Oh
So
really?
yeah, I love that band.
Yeah.
So
Great band.
yeah, so she played a huge role in it too
Oh,
because
that's
I didn't
cool.
really have access to the internet at that time. Growing up in my home, we never had a computer. So I always had to go to a friend's house to type up stuff or to go online. And so she was like my gateway to discovering this whole overseas scene and getting into that. So that really opened the doors.
That's great. Yeah, that whole the tape trade, the whole and making personalized tapes. Um yeah, that's a lost art. That was
Yeah.
I mean, I was so into that. Yeah, where it was because you had to time it right because you have this finite amount of space on two
Hmm.
sides. You got to get it right, and you also got it has to be balanced. You got to balance the songs, between ballads and heavy shit, and it's got to really fit together. And especially depending on the person that you're giving it to, there might be some emotional things that, or whatever, certain things, certain songs they need to hear. Yeah, they have to hear, and then things like, well, you find this interesting, or like, this means a lot to me. I want it to mean a lot to you, things like, yeah, that's cool. And I know there's still probably some of that. I mean, now it's like gigantic playlists, on Spotify or whatever. But, then it was, yeah, and it took a lot of time to like make a tape for somebody. It was not an easy, yeah, I remember doing that, especially, like if it was a girl, that you were trying to
Uh-huh.
do, like, like, you know,
We've all been there.
yeah, trying to put subliminal messages in there. This is what I want to do to you. Like,
Nice.
sorry, I shouldn't say, but
Yeah.
we all know. Yeah, but yeah, like the tape making thing. Yeah, that's funny. That's cool. That's awesome though. And it's always great to have like kind of an older mentor, like a musical mentor, to take you down that path of things you didn't even know existed. Now you could find it's so much more available, but back then it was like you'd read about bands, in magazines. Like how the hell do I find a Cloven Hoof album? Like
Right.
it's gonna cost me a fortune to ship that over from England, in 1986.
Oh yeah, no kidding. I mean, even in the 90s and
Yeah,
even a bit of the early 2000s too. So many
yeah,
albums didn't even get released in this country,
yeah,
and it was impossible to track some of that stuff down. I remember having to go to this cool little import store that was like an hour away from my home. I'd go there once a month just to see what kind of cool new stuff they had gotten in.
yeah, yeah. It was
So,
early 2000s. It was there was a shop in, I think they were in Manhattan, but it was like this guy and his mom. This they were Italian, kind of harsh, kind of because you just call them. You would call. They had
mhm.
a mail order thing, but you would call to see if, and it was all like Japanese and European imports. And I remember, yeah, like trying to get I think a John Sykes album, um,
Okay.
Japanese edition, and it was expensive, but still, yeah, like I called, and like, yeah, this guy's mom answered the phone, this little Italian lady, and like yelled at me because she was kind of deaf, and yeah, and it was awesome. It took forever to get it, but I finally got it. It was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And it cost a fortune, but it's still, I still have it. It was so worth it, and that they're gone. It doesn't exist. The internet killed it, but
Yeah.
it was so cool though. It was so cool. Yeah, it was. Yeah, or not the internet, but Amazon specifically is what killed that. Like the big shops, the big, where you can get it, anything and everything now. And I don't know. Yeah, I try not to do the old man, glory days thing, but it was kind of cool, like trying to find stuff because it was not easy. Now you can just click, here it is,
Yeah.
essentially, download something like in a minute, or less, immediately get some obscure album. Whereas, back in the day, it was, you had to special order it. It cost a fortune. And, yeah, it would take weeks, sometimes weeks. It was nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're both gonna sound like, Grandpa Simpson shaking his
Yeah.
fist up at the sky,
Right.
but yeah, there's something to be said about the thrill of the hunt that I
Mhm.
still do that to this day. There are like three record stores that I'll go to. I got to drive like a good hour to hour and a half to get to any of them,
Oh, wow.
but I'll do that every once in a while and just, spend 2 hours walking around and just looking through the shelves and seeing what they've got. And
Yeah.
then, you come across this album that you didn't think you'd see, and you're just like, I gotta have this.
Right.
It's great. Heck, I found the first album I ever recorded recently in a store about an hour south of me in Kankakee.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yeah, it was this doom metal album I did with a band called Question of Madness, and I there were only 300 copies of the thing ever pressed, and it can go for a pretty penny online these days. So it was like $8. I was like, I gotta grab this, and I bring it up to the counter, and I said to the lady behind the counter, I'm kind of blown away by seeing this. This is actually the first album I ever recorded. And she's like, wait, you're on this? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. She's like, no way. So I'm like, here, open it up. You know? So she takes a look, and I had a lot more hair back then, but I was like, that's me.
Nice.
You know, and she's like, oh, that's so cool. So now I got to turn around and make a profit off of it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want me to sign this? You want me to sign this for you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Do you have any as far as like searching for album, do you have a like a white whale or a unicorn album you're looking for?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, I've got a few. But if there's one that immediately comes to mind, there was a band out of Minnesota, in the mid to late 90s. They broke up in the early 2000s. They were called Conditioned Response. And they had one of their albums was released on Nightmare Records.
Okay.
Um, and then they put out one other full length after that. And then they put out a 3-song EP in like 2003 called Black Box. I have been dying to get my hands on an original copy of that for years. I I slept on it when it came out. But actually, I don't even know if I knew of them when I think I found out about them right after they broke up. And I found the 2 full-length albums right away. But that 3-song EP is like impossible to get. You can order it on Amazon as like a CDR sort of deal, I think. They'll like
Oh,
press one
interesting.
for you. And I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want the real deal.
Yeah.
But you can't find it anywhere. And one day, just like the guitar in Wayne's World, it will be mine.
Nice. Right on. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much great music out there. It's amazing. And yeah, some of those, yeah, hard to find. It's always, yeah, that challenge of trying to find that stuff, especially if you can find original, because there are a lot of, repressings and, now, which is great, but
Yeah.
yeah, to try to find original pressings and some of that stuff you probably have to go to, not that band particularly, but some of the stuff I
Mhm.
I would like to find, I'd have to go to Europe to, find some used record store and, you know, some alleyway in London to try to find some of the stuff I'd like to find, but and it probably cost a fortune if they know what they have. That's the thing too.
Yeah.
Everybody with the access to the internet now, it's so easy to look things up and go, oh, this is worth a shit ton. I'm going to charge a
Yeah.
shit ton for this. So,
No kidding.
because I
No
remember
kidding.
it was great in the late '80s and early '90s when vinyl was kind of dead. Nobody cared. I bought so much great vinyl for nothing, like dollars, and now it's worth a fortune, and not that I want to sell it, but I mean it's amazing because back then nobody cared. It was all CDs, CDC, and yeah, like, and some of it's like old 60s rock and roll type stuff, but it was just nobody cared about it. And yeah, I bought like a Jack Bruce, from Cream. I bought his first solo album for $3. It's worth like $150 now.
Oh,
It's
wow.
insane because it's rare, because it's the first pressing. And yeah,
Mhm.
but at the time nobody cared. It was, it's nuts. So anyway, sorry. I totally
Yeah,
just
no.
went off on a weird tangent there. Has
Oh,
nothing
you
to
know,
do with
trust me, I could go on for ages
anything.
about
Yeah.
that. And if you had Dustin right now, oh man, you
Yeah.
should. The 2 of us, we send text messages back and forth, like, "Look at this crazy album I found," and yeah, he makes me jealous all the time because he buys stuff at a ridiculous rate.
Yeah, he's got a crazy collection. Yeah, if I mean, I know you're not on social media, but if you on
Yeah.
Facebook, he posts daily CDs that he's and like stuff I've never even heard of. Like, where did you
Yeah,
find this? Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
yeah, I thought I knew a lot of bands. No, Dustin is just he's like a walking encyclopedia.
yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah, this of course for those this is Dustin, the bass player of Category 5. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, massive collection. Yeah, like you said, yeah, encyclopedia. And he's played with a lot of bands as well and some pretty famous people too. He's done some pretty crazy stuff. Um, well, Al, this has been awesome chatting with you, of course. And so much great music that you're working on and have put out this last year and over the years, of course. So for those of you watching, definitely, check out the description below. I've got links to Acracy, the new the Core Manifold, Category 5, and lots of new music is coming out as well. Of course, Zych and is out now, and then you're doing stuff with him as coming out, as you mentioned before. So a lot of cool stuff happening right now with you. I don't even know how you keep any of this straight. But keep doing what you're doing, because it is impressive. So Al, thank you so very much for chatting with me. This has been awesome.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And oh, real quick, a big
Oh,
shout out to Trish Vitacco for providing that picture. Trish, you
yeah.
are the best. Thank you.
Yes, Trish is the best. Yeah, Trish. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.